Well, good morning and welcome into the Farzy show here at the Steven Singer Studios. Great to have you along, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest today is going to be former Philadelphia Eagles safety Quintin Mikell, who is starting a brand new podcast and a brand new YouTube show with Jason Avant, friend of this show as well. And with Quintin Mikell and Jason Avant, a little thing they like to call Q&A. So make sure you check out that podcast a little bit later today. Quintin Mikell has a lot of things to offer in terms of not just football knowledge, but also some just a fun guy to talk to. And we'll talk to him about his playing days. We'll talk to him about his new podcast and web show with Jason Avant as part of the Inside the Birds network. So we got a lot to get into a little bit later in the show, including the current state of the Philadelphia Eagles when it comes to Quintin Mikell's perspective. All that and more coming up on the Farzy show. But I start with something that is bothering me. And I know for a lot of people, hockey isn't, unfortunately, because I love the sport, hockey is not a lead story for a lot of people. One of the great things about this type of platform is that I can talk hockey. I can do that a little bit more. And what I saw last night was awful. And we're going to get into the Flyers. We're going to get into the 76ers. And we're going to get into Odubel Herrera and the Philadelphia Phillies as they played their third spring training game yesterday. But let's start off with these Flyers. Last night they played Pittsburgh. And going into the game, you saw Sidney Crosby was not going to be playing because he just got placed on the COVID protocol list. So you go into the game thinking, all right, not for reasons that you ever want when a good player is not playing, but they're not going to be as good as they should be because Sidney Crosby's not there. Might as well have been 5 Sidney Crosby skaters out there. I know Kapanen had himself an incredible game. Good for him. But the way the Flyers played last night was awful. It was abysmal. And I give a lot of credit to Alain Vigneault, who was just flat out, as per usual, honest after the game, saying where the problems lied, and also what line is the line he's kind of excusing for the way they played last night. And the line he was excusing is the line that you would probably, if you watched the game and really have watched the last few games with the Philadelphia Flyers, really the most of the season, is the Sean Couturier line. James Van Riemsdyk, Joel Farabee, on that line with Sean Couturier is the line that Alain Vigneault goes, you know what? You guys are good. Everybody else, I need a little bit more. And then he said he also started doing some mixing and matching because things just looked so off kilter. Nobody was getting into rhythm. And the one line he could say step aside was the Coots line. Literally said that in the press conference after the game. And during the game, that's exactly what it looked like because it looked like Coots and Farabee and JVR were pouncing on the puck and they were attacking. It looked like they actually had some aggression throughout the game last night against Pittsburgh, and the Flyers ended up losing 5-2. And 5-2, it's probably a little bit of a disservice, but it did feel like that a little bit. And the fifth goal that the Penguins scored was just, it looked like an awful miscommunication. It was a turnover as Carter Hart was trying to get off the ice, and the Penguins ended up going up the ice and just scoring a goal, no problem. So it was just a bad hockey game. And you had a feeling it wasn't going to go the Flyers' way. One of the first 7 minutes of the game, they get 2 power plays, and they couldn't put the proverbial biscuit in the basket. They didn't get that many great opportunities there, which is also bad. They didn't create those opportunities, but they didn't bury it. They didn't take advantage when those opportunities presented themselves early. And it always feels like in hockey, whenever you get those early opportunities and you fail to cash in on it, it always feels like it's going to come back to bite you a little bit later in the game. And last night, they actually jumped out to a 1-0 lead because who scored? Oh, Joel Farabee, go figure. Sean Couturier was able to keep his stick on the ice, get it to Farabee. He ended up scoring the goal to go up 1-0. And then Shane Gostisbehere comes out and in the same period turns the puck over with an awful turnover. We'll hear from Shane Gostisbehere a little bit later. We'll hear from Alain Vigneault a little bit later. Honesty is what we always ask for. AV is always giving you honest opinions about his hockey team, no doubt there. But Shane Gostisbehere also very honest about his turnover. We'll let you hear from those guys in just a second. I do want to touch on this. Yesterday, Odubel Herrera got in the game for the Phillies to transition to some spring training action. He did address the media. He talked about how his girlfriend has forgiven him for what has happened, and now he is in the pursuit of people forgiving him that he's going to be working around every day and working with every day. That's people in the Phillies organization. And he's also going to be working for the trust and the support of the fan base. Look, I have no doubt that a lot of people, if you say, hey, what did Odubel Herrera do? Was it wrong? Yes, it's wrong. Okay, I'm glad that we could cover that. But I have no doubt that if Odubel Herrera wins this center fielder's job, which again, I'm not exactly rooting for him, I'm rooting for Adam Hazley, the higher draft pick and the cheaper option, by the way. I think a lot of people are going to be on their feet and they're going to be cheering. And that's what happens. And it seems like we talk about this a lot throughout sports. When something happens off the field, do you want that guy on your team? And I think if a lot of people are being honest with themselves, I think what they're really looking at is just for whatever players on the field to help that team win. And bottom line, the 88,000, 8,800 people that will most likely be at the Phillies opener will just want Odubel Herrera to be a good baseball player that day. That's what they'll be cheering for. And all the off-field stuff will go out the window. And it makes me think back to what happened years ago with Brett Myers and how a lot of people were there still cheering Brett Myers when he was out there after everything happened with his wife in Boston all those years ago. And some people said, yeah, I'm going to take a moral stance here, and I'm not going to cheer the guy. I'm going to cheer. I'm going to hope he does terrible, so the Phillies get rid of him. What's really interesting is I feel like the Phillies and Major League Baseball learned from that Brett Myers and other experiences, and they at least slapped Odubel Herrera with an 80-game suspension. It wasn't like he was out there the next day starting. It wasn't like he was out there the next day playing, as is what happened with Brett Myers the day after everything was discovered it happened in the streets of Boston with his wife. Bottom line is people just want players to perform well. And they don't really care about the moral obligation to the rest of society. I think a lot of people are going to look at Odubel Herrera and that suspension and say he paid his dues, where really what people are going to say is, sure, he may have paid his dues, but is he going to be worth the squeeze for this team as the season goes on and as his career goes on? Yesterday, got a hit, got a stolen base. So I think for a lot of people, it's going to be a judgment call come opening day. But I'm still hoping that the 8th overall pick, Adam Hazley, is the guy that ends up taking that center field spot. But Odubel Herrera did play in his first real Phillies action, if you will, since everything went down, and was obviously invited to spring training to be with the big league ball club. Got in his first game yesterday. Tonight is a huge night in the basketball world for the 76ers. The 76ers take on the number one team in the Western Conference after the Sixers took care of business against the Indiana Pacers the way they should have taken care of business. And now the 76ers are going to be stepping foot on the court with the Utah Jazz, a team that when they matched up against them, stayed stride for stride with them for the vast majority of the game. Ben Simmons was incredible in that game. Ben Simmons had the 42-point performance out there in Utah. They gave the best team in the West, the best team in the East gave the best team in the West their absolute best shot. They gave them all they could handle without their MVP, Joel Embiid, playing in that game. Joel Embiid set to be active tonight, set to be ready to go despite that ankle injury that he battled through against the Pacers, battled through for against the Pacers, and now will be out there with Rudy Gobert, matching wits, matching talent. And I got nothing but big aspirations for what the big man could do tonight against Rudy Gobert, as well as Ben Simmons. And Tobias Harris supposed to be back in the lineup as well. So no talk about not having your full roster. No talk about, well, what if we had this guy? What if the Sixers had this guy in the lineup facing the best team in the Western Conference? And I can't think of a better time to have this game than right before the All-Star break, your last game before the All-Star game. And you're going to have this long layoff, and you're going to see how you measure up against the best team in the Western Conference, at least record-wise right now, while at the same time you have the Brooklyn Nets nipping at your heels right now, still a half game behind the 76ers for first place in the Eastern Conference. No better time to have this game. No better time to have Tobias Harris at least test out that ankle, that issue that he's having as they go up against the Utah Jazz tonight. I know that we're all going to be looking at Joel Embiid and the Rudy Gobert matchup, but there's something about Donovan Mitchell and Ben Simmons that has become one of my favorite rivalries, personal, individualized rivalries, if you will, away from the teams, just two people. There's something about that rivalry that started up, and obviously it goes back to the Rookie of the Year conversation from just a couple of years ago, where Donovan Mitchell showing up in Utah with the hoodie on that says "Rookie" with the definition on it, hinting that Ben Simmons was his second year in the league, even though he didn't play his technical first year as a professional. Donovan Mitchell thought he should have won that Rookie of the Year award, and of course it went to Ben Simmons. But also in these games, not just because the Utah Jazz are the number one seed right now in the West, these games, for whatever reason, get Ben Simmons to play his best. And we certainly saw that, no better example than the 42-point performance in their first matchup during the season. I can't wait for this game tonight. This is going to be the perfect send-off. I got the Sixers winning this game tonight against Utah on their own home turf. And then Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons go to the All-Star break. Hopefully represent the team well, have themselves some fun. And maybe, and I forgot about this, I think it was actually Sixers Twitter that put this out a couple of weeks ago. Or last week, excuse me, when Ben Simmons made it to the All-Star team as well, made it to the All-Star game as well. I forgot about this. The little ass slap, the little good hustle from Ben Simmons to Joel Embiid last year in the All-Star game. You love to see it, especially in the time then when a lot of people were talking about, oh, these two can't play together. They don't even really like each other. I mean, they don't hate each other, but they're not best friends. Like, people were trying to look for a story there that just wasn't there. And that showed a little lightheartedness, a little good humor between the two of them. And right now you're seeing those two guys play together the best they ever have. Both individually, they're playing their best basketball yet. And as a team, as teammates, they're playing their best basketball yet. And to have Tobias Harris back for tonight's game goes without saying how huge that is. Because it feels like whenever Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid are without the other, or whenever they're without Tobias Harris, most notably, it feels like they have that missing cog in the wheel, that missing piece. It feels like the Jenga tower gets a little wobbly, especially when Tobias Harris is not in that lineup. And I say that because he's the guy you can have as your default scorer when you don't have Joel Embiid in the lineup scoring for you, or you don't have Ben Simmons in the lineup scoring for you in the way that he can, especially now making his free throws. And by the way, I'm remiss. Yesterday, I didn't even mention the 4 for 4 from the free throw line that Ben Simmons had against the Pacers. Great to see that from Ben, continuing that in the month of March, just as he had in the month of February, improving his free throw percentage. Love to see that. We're going to get into football. By the way, 7 o'clock tip-off tonight in South Philadelphia, the Wells Fargo Center. Sixers and Jazz, can't wait for that game. We're going to get into a lot of football stuff with Quintin Mikell coming up in a minute, but a couple of stories that are out there right now. Yesterday, we touched on Marcus Mariota, how the Eagles are supposedly, according to The Athletic, keeping their eyes on Mariota and see what happens there for him to possibly come here to Philadelphia to be the backup to Jalen Hurts. We've also talked a lot about some other quarterbacks that could be out there. Jacoby Brissett is a guy that we touched on. Yesterday, it became official. The Washington football team is parting ways with Alex Smith. Yes. The answer to this question, yes. I would absolutely go after Alex Smith as a backup quarterback. I would absolutely go after, he was my first choice. After that, it'd be Fitzmagic. I would go after Ryan Fitzpatrick to be the backup quarterback to Jalen Hurts. So this way you know you at least have a veteran backup to a guy that you're hoping you can groom along the way. We will have so many more answers to so many of our questions in about 2 months when the NFL draft is wrapping up. And we know who the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles is going into the season, who his backup will be, if they'll take a quarterback early in this draft. And I am not ruling it out. I know Bale Reese came out yesterday on Twitter and said there is zero chance, there's close to zero chance that the Eagles take a quarterback. I ain't ruling anything out. If I have to bet on it, I am saying that the Eagles do not take a quarterback early, but I'm not ruling it out. I'm not saying it's close to 0% because I think Howie Roseman knows that there is a chance to hit a reset button if he is able to draft a quarterback early. He'll be given a little bit more time in order to groom that guy, as will Nick Sirianni, in order to see if they could put the Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz saga behind them. But I think the more likely scenario is they take a weapon for Jalen Hurts. I think the more likely scenario is they take a Jamar Chase if he's available. They take a Devontae Smith if he's still there, which he probably will be. They take a Kyle Pitts, for instance, and see what he could do for this roster as a tight end / wide receiver and all his versatility. And that's something that I think the Eagles are really looking at. Not just the fact that he's a playmaking tight end and can play the wide receiver spot as well, but also the fact that Nick Sirianni, as I've said before, is coming from the Frank Reich offense and loving him some 12 personnel. So Dallas Goedert, Pitts, I think those are two guys that you would like to see run that 12 personnel. I am operating under the assumption that Zach Ertz is not here. And I think most people are in that school already. I don't think there's really a shot that he comes back to Philadelphia and comes back to the Eagles. I know the reports have been out there, so that's why I think they'd be looking at that tight end wide receiver type option with a guy like Pitts. So I think they actually try to go for a weapon at number 6 overall to try to help out Jalen Hurts, because I think that's the more likely scenario. But we'll get the answer to these questions coming up in less than 2 months now with the NFL draft. So I look forward to that. Before we get to Quintin Mikell, I promised you this. Shane Gostisbehere had a turnover last night in the Flyers' 5-2 loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And it was pretty much right at the blue line. It led to a breakaway going the other direction. And Shane Gostisbehere was asked after the game kind of what happened to the defense in this game and kind of what happened in those defensive breakdowns that they had. And Shane was rather honest. Take a look.
For sure. Maybe if I didn't pass on the puck and they scored tied the game, that would have helped too.
I think that would have helped. I appreciate the honesty. And Ghost was hard on himself after the game, as you just heard. And I know a lot of people have been down on Ghost. They were hoping this year you're feeling healthy. You're feeling like you're getting back into the swing of things. Played well in the bubble last year, and hopefully you could build off that. It didn't seem to be the case last night for Shane Gostisbehere, unfortunately. Here's Alain Vigneault on the loss.
I think our problem tonight was through that neutral zone. We made a couple plays through the neutral zone or other near their blue line that cost us coming back the other way. But we definitely, I mean, they played hard tonight, and they won a few battles that gave them real good opportunities. Give them credit, give them full marks on that. Couple plays from our side that we needed to be better at. We weren't. We're gonna have to, regroup, refocus here, and get ready for the next game.
Here's the good thing about losing to the Penguins last night. You got them tomorrow, and if that's not enough, you got them again on Sunday. So there you go. You just keep on playing. Saturday, you keep on playing. You just keep on playing the Penguins. The beauty of this schedule that they got going right now. When he talks about the neutral zone problems that they had, I think the one that really is highlighted in his mind, at least, is the Gostisbehere turnover that, like I said, happened right around the blue line. And then also Travis Konechny, I think he was trying to get the puck to Kevin Hayes, or Kevin Hayes vice versa, trying to get to TK. And that was another turnover around the blue line, this time going into the Flyers defensive zone. And that ended up going the other way, catching Carter Hart off guard as he was trying to get off the ice for the extra attacker. Both those plays are just bad plays that can't happen. And Alain Vigneault, I think, is highlighting that. But the other thing is, I love this. I know a lot of people might say, to hell with it, it's a team game. Don't highlight who does well when the team does bad. If I got something going, I'm highlighting what's going and telling the rest of the guys on the team and the other lines on the team, hey, guys, can you be more like Sean Couturier, James Van Riemsdyk, and Joel Farabee? Because they never stop. They never let up, really. They keep on pouncing, as I said earlier. Alain Vigneault on his top line, his best line yesterday, and how his other lines need to kind of live up to that snuff.
Coots' line brought their A game. I would say the other three lines, and I mixed and matched, they're looking for some chemistry, some jump. And obviously Coots' line played a real strong game. We needed a little bit more from the other guys, obviously. But at the end of the day, this is a team game and a team effort. And we lost tonight as a team, and we're going to find a way to rebound here and get ready for the next game.
It gives you a little bit of coach speak there, but the message is clear. Guys, you see this line? They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Everybody else want to pick it up? All right? No? All right. Well, hopefully you will. So hopefully the Flyers are able to get things back on the winning track in 24 hours, and we'll see them hopefully beat the Penguins in the not-too-distant future. So that'll be fun. I do want to tell you before we get to Quintin Mikell about our good friend Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Of course, he sponsors the studio here on the Farzy Show, and I've been going to Steven Singer for 18 years now. Trusted him with my wedding bands, trusted him with my wife's engagement ring, trusted him with a lot of gifts, actually, for my wife over the years. I have trusted Steven Singer longer than anybody, and you should, too. The other corner of 8th and Walnut, IHateStevenSinger.com. Was actually just talking to a friend of mine yesterday. He wants to get engaged. He wants to pop the question, and he goes, can you tell him I'm coming? I go, well, you're damn right I will. Go to the appointment scheduler. You schedule an appointment, you show up, and I'll make sure they know you're on your way, my friend. That's how easy it is for you, too. Just go to IHateStevenSinger.com, use that appointment scheduler, set yourself up for an appointment, show up at the other corner of 8th and Walnut right in Philadelphia, and you will have a real jewelry expert walk you through the proper steps to buy the perfect ring, the perfect engagement ring, or the perfect piece of jewelry for that special someone in your life. Real jewelry experts give you the perfect price every single time, and that's what Steven Singer guarantees you. Not just great customer service, not just treating you like a human being, also making you feel like you don't have to haggle or negotiate because everything is already at the perfect price. Steven likes to think of himself as if Walmart and Tiffany's had a baby, that would be his beautiful, amazing jewelry store. And he's not far off even a little bit, because you feel at home at Steven Singer Jewelers. Go to the other corner of 8th and Walnut, IHateStevenSinger.com. Use the appointment schedule to make yourself an appointment, and they will take phenomenal care of you. IHateStevenSinger.com. Without further ado, I am a big fan of this gentleman. I have been for quite some time. I have never had the opportunity to interview him. I've interviewed a lot of his teammates, former teammates from being with the Philadelphia Eagles, never him himself. And he is starting a brand new podcast that I'm sure he'll tell you all about. Please welcome in on the Zatos Investments guest line, our new friend of the show, Quintin Mikell, joining the program. 8-year member of the Philadelphia Eagles, a Pro Bowler, a man that's played in NFC Championship games, played in a Super Bowl, all while being here in Philadelphia. After, by the way, being undrafted, not too shabby there, Quintin Mikell. Quintin, thank you for joining us here on the Zatos Investments guest line. And I understand you have a new venture starting up right now with Inside the Birds and your old teammate Jason Avant.
Yeah, man, we're excited. We actually just we filmed our first show. It's called Q&A for Quintin and Avant, and we're talking about the Birds, current state, future state. We'll be talking about draft picks, all type of stuff, and really it's going to be specifically based on the skill positions, right? So I was a safety, cornerback, defensive back, a little bit of dime backer, and Jason was a receiver. And so we're going to be kind of breaking down a lot of those parts of the game that a lot of people may or may not know exist, and looking forward to it. It's been a lot of fun.
I'm curious to get your perspective on this, because in the time you started playing or stopped playing and the time now that you're going into sort of this media aspect of everything, I've kind of had this theory that fans have never been more educated than they are right now. It seems like there's a lot of insider shows like you guys are starting up. Like, just to play Madden now, you can go through a whole tutorial on like zone coverages and man-to-man and everything. Like, you have to pass a test almost just to play the game. Yeah. Are you experiencing that now a little bit more? Obviously, you're going a little bit more into the relation with the fans through media.
Absolutely, and it's really good for the game. I mean, the more people know, the better the game grows, the better better for everyone. And I think what we're seeing now, and especially with Madden and you're seeing with fantasy football, is people are really starting to study it and looking at it from a different perspective, and being able to really have good conversations with current players and ex-players, instead of, hey, what the heck happened on that play, or what are you guys doing in the locker room? Like, you're actually able to have like very good back and forth with people that understand the game better. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it certainly seems like, and I agree with you, the more people that know the game, the better, and it's more educated fan base leads to a more intelligent conversation. Go figure. Now, I understand you guys just wrapped your first episode. How'd it go for you?
It went well, man. We touched on a lot of stuff. We obviously hit on the Carson situation for quite a while, and we talked about Jalen and the current state of the team and what we like to see moving forward. And so we hit on a lot of different things, and it was really cool seeing Jason's perspective, because he was actually in the building. He was assistant coaching. He was, I guess what you would call.
He was on the staff.
He was on the staff. Yeah. He wasn't a paid member, but he was on the staff, and he was there for the whole year. So he actually was able to learn a lot about the ins and outs of the team. And I'd been in the building for when Carson was a rookie. I touched on that as well. I was the director of player engagement for the Eagles. So it was a lot of good stuff, some good insight, and going to be tons more.
Can I ask this question? And I know it's going to sound wildly ignorant, but what do you say you do here when you're a director of player engagement?
So it's essentially, I look at it in three parts. It's onboarding for the rookies and the younger and new players. I would say the vets, like 3 to 5 year players, it's helping them go back and get their education if they need to. It's helping them kind of develop off the field stuff in terms of if they want to do businesses, things like that, trying to help them get in the right area. And then for the veterans and the older players, it's kind of getting them ready for life after football. Okay. So really, it's more about encompassing all of the other things outside the game of football and making sure guys are ready and prepared to move on.
I know that you just talked about a lot of this stuff with Carson Wentz and kind of the state of the Eagles right now. I am curious just to get your overall take. With Carson being traded, it looks like Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy, at least right now, maybe not forever, but right now at least seems to be the guy they're going to be betting on. We'll see what happens in the draft. But right now, Quintin Mikell, what's the state of the birds in your opinion?
Well, it's really weird. It's uncharted territory. I think this is the first time since Chip Kelly was the head coach, where you're not really sure what's going to happen. You kind of had an idea when Doug was coach. You obviously knew when Andy was coach what you were going to expect, and you had an idea a little bit of what Chip was bringing to the table. So, but like right now with Nick Sirianni, there's not much known about him. I'm hoping it's all good things. There's tons of holes on this team, and it's gonna be a different road for us Eagle fans. So it's actually a good time for guys like us that want to talk about it and figure out where we're headed. But as a fan, it's like, okay, I don't know where we're going, man. I don't know. So. But yeah, with Carson, it kind of had to happen at this point. And it looks like it kind of worked out on the outset for both parties. And we're excited for Jalen and what he can bring to the table and looking forward to it.
Yeah, my take on that whole thing was people looked at some of the return, and they looked at possibly getting a first-round pick or getting that second-round pick and a third-round pick, depending on what happens with Carson in Indianapolis. But I look at it as it was already a failure. You drafted him to be the franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future, and obviously he's not that. And we saw things really diminish from the MVP caliber year that he had to present day. So I'd like to say, at least they got this in return, but ultimately I look at what they didn't get when they traded up from 13-8 to 2 in order to take Carson Wentz when you were actually just joining the Birds in the more of the front office range.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing is I think that does get lost is what was given up to get him and what was expected of him. And it's funny, we kind of talked about that as well with, Jared Goff and Carson, both guys that teams made huge moves to get them. And then a couple of years later, less than 5 years later, they're on different teams. So or less than 6 years later, they're on different teams. So it's really it's unfortunate because I do think that Carson, he's still going to be a very good player. I just don't think that it was the right fit here in the city. And it obviously quickly soured over the last year. And, there's multiple reasons why. And it's unfortunate. But I do think that the Eagles, in the end, they did the best that they could by trading him and putting him in a situation where for him, it's gonna work out for him. And if that does, it works out better for us. So, more. I wish him a lot of luck, and I think he's going to do just fine in Indy.
When you said that there's a lot of holes here to fill in Philadelphia, it sounds like we're going to be set for a bit of a retooling, at least, probably a rebuilding. How long do you think that'll take? Any idea?
No clue.
Ballpark it for me.
I'm hoping somewhere around 3 years we'll start to see a turnaround, and I think the biggest way to do that is to start by getting solid draft picks and then sprinkling in some good vets here, some free agent signings, and making sure that we're surrounding Jalen Hurts. If you're going to build on one side of the ball, if it's going to be on the offense or if it's going to be on defense, one thing you have to do is if you're building around Jalen Hurts, you got to get him some weapons and you got to get him some protection. All right. So if that's the case where that's how we're going, let's go all in, and defense will have to catch up eventually. But I think if your move is to keep Jalen and to move him into that spot, you have to surround him with some weapons and let's make sure that he's able to lead this team.
Absolutely. And Quintin, when I'm looking at everything that's gone on with Jalen Hurts over this past year and the small sample size, I hate to go with I don't know, and I hate to go with we'll see. But how confident are you that he can be the guy at least this year and then prove that he can be a franchise guy going forward?
Yeah, I have a ton of confidence in him, and I just and really I don't know the guy personally, but just seeing his story and seeing what he's been through, the ups and downs of his career, and even now, I mean, he's still in battle. He's still dealing with quote unquote QB controversy and stuff, and the guy just keeps fighting. And that's, especially in this city, that's something that you want. You want a guy that's going to put the team on his back, that's going to say, you know what, no matter what happens in this game, I'm going to go out there and give my team the best shot to win. And he's got the right mentality. Obviously, he's not there yet. He's still young, But if you can get a couple players here and there, you get a couple linemen. I mean, he's not going to be a drop back Tom Brady type quarterback. He's going to be able to use his feet. So, just let's give him a little bit of time. Let's build some weapons, give him some weapons, and let's see where he goes.
No, I'm with you there. So when you have the 6th overall pick, there's obviously a lot of things you can do, especially because you're going to have a 3rd round draft pick. You have a 2nd round draft pick. So you have an opportunity here to move up, and you possibly might even have a future 1st round pick here. You're saying at least this year you don't see the Eagles drafting a quarterback high in the draft, because I know there's some people that are already starting to talk about that. Would you see them more drafting offensive line, maybe drafting that weapon in a Pitts, maybe a Jamar Chase, for instance, maybe a Devontae Smith, whatever it might be? You see them going more offensive of the ball to help Jalen Hurts' case going forward, or drafting a quarterback to take over that spot in the long term?
Yeah. So my guess my guess as to what's going on, my feeling is you draft the best player available. If you're staying at that 6th pick, no matter who that player is, you draft the best player available. And we had a discussion about that, and I understood Jason's point of view, but my point of view is if your board says that, let's say Zach Wilson is the pick at the number 6 pick, then you have to go with your board. We're in a position where we need as much help as possible, whether the position. So if Jamar Chase is there, is that on your board at 6, then you draft him. I just say draft the best player possible, the best player on your board at that point.
Yeah, and for the record, I don't think the Eagles are going to trade up. I think if anything, they trade back for the same reason you pointed out earlier, all the holes they have to fill. So that's always fun. I do want to ask you about the defensive side of the ball here with the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a man that was playing a safety that you played here, looking at a guy like Jalen Mills. Some controversy as to whether or not he's going to be staying in Philadelphia or moving on. Did he do enough for you at the safety position, transitioning from corner to stay here in Philadelphia and at that spot?
That's a good question. From what I've seen on tape, he's still got a little bit to go. He can definitely develop into a standout safety. It's one of those positions. Safety is one of those positions where there's a lot of little small things that can affect a single play, and a lot of it has to do with your eyes. When you're in that box, if you got a tight end, it could be a run, it could be a pass, right? If it's a run, you got to figure out your hole. If it's a pass, you got to figure out your coverage. So it's a lot it's a lot different in that sense. When you're at corner, you have a little more time, right? You're wider on the outside of the field, right? You have a little more time. Plus, you're only seeing one thing. You're seeing this receiver that's in front of you. So I think his eyes need to be trained a little bit better. Those little things, once he gets that figured out, I think he'll be just fine. Because when it comes to, let's say a team comes out in 11 personnel, which is one back and one tight end, right? They've got 3 receivers on the field. He can go out and flex with the receiver all day, and he can cover that. So that helps the secondary. That helps the defensive coordinator not have to put in a nickel defense, right? So it's just the situations where it's, 2 tight ends in the box where you got to get down there and now it's time to man up. I just like to see his eyes get a little bit better, and I think he can do that.
Mm-hmm. And I certainly hope so. And he's a guy, at least personality-wise, I've wanted to stick around. But in my own little detective work here, trying to play roving reporter, I've noticed in a couple interviews, Jalen Mills' hair is starting to turn less green. It's getting more black. So maybe he's not so sure about his return. That's what I'm basing it on. Quintin, I want to ask you about your playing days, if I can. We're speaking with Quintin Mikell, who's going to be doing a show with Inside the Birds called Q&A with Jason Avanis, former teammate of the Philadelphia Eagles. You guys can check that out on YouTube and also where podcasts are available, correct?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. YouTube, Inside the Birds. I'm going to be up, should be up in the morning, 6 a.m.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. People can, once they're done listening to your brilliance on this program, they can click over to that and check it out. So, Quintin, I want to ask you this. I've been lucky enough to get to know some of your former teammates, Trey Thomas being one of them. Hugh Douglas is a weekly guest on this show. Hollis Thomas, Brian Dawkins a little bit. I'm curious. There were a bunch of characters on that. Todd Harriman's another one. There were a bunch of characters on that squad. And in your time, in your 8 years with the Eagles, is there one guy that jumps out to you as kind of the guy you think back and you laugh about the most?
Oh man, there's so many. That secondary we had so many just generally funny guys. Lito Shepherd's probably one of the most funniest people you'll ever be around. Like he was always cracking jokes. having a good time. Sheldon Brown, great guy. Obviously,
yeah.
Doc was funny. Like Doc was a lot funnier than people knew. Like he was serious, but he cracked jokes all the time.
Really?
Oh yeah, he cracked jokes all the time. He was
Okay, now this is breaking news. Great guy, and like I said, I got to know him a little bit. I've interviewed him a bunch of times, talked to him in person a bunch of times. Can you give me an example of a Brian Dawkins joke?
All right, so here's one. I wouldn't say it's more of a joke. It's more of like a
funny happen.
There you go. So a lot of people didn't. Jim Johnson was a great guy, great coach, great person, but he had this tone that when he just started talking, it'll put you to sleep. Like it just after a while, sitting in a hot meeting for hours, you just kind of you start dozing off. So Doc had this little thing. He's like, see, this is what I would do. So you take the water, and he's like, you just put a little bit of water in there like that, and then you just dip it in your eyes. And that's how I keep you up, right? It didn't work for anybody. Next thing you know, he's in the back, knocked out. So, he was always kind of cracking jokes and doing stuff like that. So, yeah.
That's a side of Doc we never really got to see in public. Like, we always knew he was like a fun-loving guy, very religious, obviously extremely intense on the football field, Mr. Wolverine and all that. Wolverine, idiot man, all the bobbleheads in his locker, next to his locker, and all that stuff. But that is one thing I've never heard about Brian Dawkins. That's fascinating. Now, you mentioned him. You were here during that whole transition. What was it like being not just a member of the team, but being a member of that secondary? And all of a sudden, Brian Dawkins wasn't coming back to Philadelphia, and you're one of the guys there looking to pick up the slack there, left behind at the safety position.
Yeah, that was weird. That entire situation, you kind of got the feeling that it was going to happen because, back then it was almost like a running joke. When you got to 29, 30 years old, it was like, okay, yeah, I know, and Doc had been, I think he might have been like mid-30s at that point, right? And so you kind of had
about 33, I think, is when he went to Denver.
Yeah. So you kind of had knew the vibe at the end, towards the end of the season, that was going to happen, and it just really it's still to this day. That's probably the one thing, and I do think that the entire organization is probably the one thing that they probably regretted was letting him walk and go play for another team. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately at the time, I think it was more a decision of, it came from a place of, we can't do this for everyone, right? We got to hold true to what we believe in. And I just think absolutely for a guy like that, you make sure that you break a couple rules for him. You know what I mean? So, but it was a kind of a rocky time with management and all that stuff. And so it was really hard seeing it. And then the next year, it was quite obvious that he was being missed, and he was it's almost kind of like a situation where it's like he was a Hall of Famer, right? And he's not there, and then there's little old me lining up in the secondary. I was like, holy crap, this sucks.
Well, did you go to the Pro Bowl the year after he was gone in 2009?
Yeah, 2000, I believe it was 10 or 11 was the year. It was the year it was in Miami. So that was the year. I think it was the next year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So it wasn't the year Michael Vick took over at quarterback. That was 2010. It was the year.
That was the year. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was the year. Okay.
All right. It was that January or February, whenever they used that. I can't remember.
Okay. Understood. So as far as your career here in Philadelphia goes, undrafted, 8-year career, Pro Bowl, Super Bowl appearance, of all the years here in Philly in particular, is there a moment for you that really sticks out to you?
Oh man, there's been tons. A couple personal big plays was my first interception against the Giants over Jeremy Shockey from Eli Manning. The year we played San Diego and I blocked the field goal, and Matt Ware ran it back for a touchdown. Those are two of my personal favorites. And then I'll never forget playing in the Super Bowl. I was on special teams, right? So I'm on the field on opening play, and I'll never forget, as soon as that ball was kicked, all I saw was like a flash of lights. That's all I can remember. Is like everyone's cameras went off at the same time, and it was like blinding. And I was like, wow, like just for a second, I'm like, I'm playing in the Super Bowl. Like those 3 moments probably stand out the most, but the Super Bowl was phenomenal. It sucks that we didn't win, but that whole experience is just amazing.
I've heard a lot of different reactions from some of your different teammates. Oh, they cheated. Oh, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. I wish we would have cheated. Like I've heard so many different reactions. What is your reaction to that whole Spygate fiasco that went on, for those 3-4 Super Bowls?
So the thing that's tough, especially with ours, is you don't have 100% proof. I would just say this, like I was a special team guy, so I was on the sidelines a lot during the defensive play calling, and especially the second half, it was like every single time we had a blitz on, there was a screen. Like it was almost like,
ooh,
it was crazy. And if you know Jim Johnson, like when he's got his blitzes, those are his babies, right? And he'll keep calling them. Like he'll call a blitz after blitz after blitz until one hits home. And it just, every single time we had one called, it was we had a screen mysteriously, and they were all different type of screens, and they were kind of gashing us that second half. So I don't know. I don't think, I find that very weird, right? So
I find it weird.
maybe the analytics.
You were at least on the sidelines. I was like on my sofa at my parents' house at the time. But I can go ahead and ponder. I think I know where you're getting at. Now, the last thing I want to ask you about here, fans are going to start to be allowed to be going back into the stadiums now with COVID restrictions being lifted in the state of Pennsylvania, which I'm thrilled for. And I know I've missed just as a fan going to games and enjoying that with friends, family, whatever. Could you imagine playing with no fans? And no, not for nothing. I remember you did play in St. Louis, so I get it. But can you imagine? When they were the Rams, when they were in St. Louis. But could you ever imagine playing in a stadium with no fans?
Yeah, that's probably one of the most understated facts about this season, especially for, I don't think it was as bad in certain areas like in Florida where they were allowed to have some fans, but places like here where there was no fans, in a city of Philadelphia where like we draw, as players, we would draw so much motivation from the fans. That had to be unspeakably hard. And really on top of that, from that, but even in meeting wise, like they weren't allowed to meet in person. Right. So that had to be very hard too. Because as a player, if let's say I'm a defensive back, right, and I'm going to watch tape with my cornerbacks and my linebackers, right? So we can talk to each other. Hey, how do you see playing this, right? If I jump this, how are you gonna react to it? All right. You see that slant, go get that slant. I got your back. So like little stuff like that, I think made it impossibly hard. And then on top of that, playing in front of fans, like that's like the icing on the cake. Like that's what you do it for. And so it had to be really hard to play. And I'm sure they had to fake motivate each other. And it just, after a while, you like, oh, this is fake. Like, I know it's fake. So it had to be hard.
I'm sure, and I think end zone cam helped distract with everyone getting poses after every touchdown. So hopefully that was at least the case. Quintin Mikell, I'm so glad you're going to be joining part of the Inside the Birds broadcast group, and you're going to be doing Q&A with your old teammate Jason Avant. I know the first episode is available right now, 6 a.m. So people can check it out at their leisure and get more of the brilliance that is Quintin Mikell. Quintin Mikell, thank you so much for being on the show and joining us here on the Zatos Investments guest line.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
My thanks to Quintin Mikell. Now, some of you might be thinking, the Eagles have won a Super Bowl. Get over Spygate. Forget about it. No. How about that? And look, I think we all know that the Patriots cheated. And I've never heard that side of it before because the people I've talked to about it have been starters, were already veterans at the time. But Quintin Mikell was, like he said, just a special teamer at the time. So he had a little bit of a different perspective on all of this. Standing there on the sidelines in the year 2005, following the 2004 season. So they're in the Super Bowl, obviously. And he's sitting there on the sidelines going, wow, every time we blitz, they're running a screen. Now, I will say this. Jim Johnson, it wasn't exactly a secret that he was blitzing. I will say that. So I'm sure in the second half, they still said, hey, you know what? We're going to be running some screens to try to get away from Jim Johnson's blitzing, which shouldn't be breaking news. But if Quintin Mikell is noticing it more in the second half, I find that to be even more interesting. So, yeah, the Patriots cheated, just further evidence. That's all you need to know. And you were robbed of a Super Bowl earlier in your life than 3 years ago, for instance. But Quintin Mikell, a lot of great stuff right there. And I thought it was really unique, really interesting. I never heard that side of the story as well when it came to that transition from the Brian Dawkins era to the Macho Harris, Sean Jones era of free safety, if you will. I mean, Quintin Mikell was a strong safety mostly throughout his career, did play some free safety as well. But to be in that locker room, to be there as a younger guy, 4 or 5 years with Dawkins running things in that secondary, playing as great as he did, and also having the leadership and the wisdom of a Jim Johnson. And then all of a sudden you go to, unfortunately, no Jim Johnson. He passes away. And then also Brian Dawkins goes to Denver. And I know a lot of people still hold that grudge, and that's a conversation for another day, but Denver paid him out the you-know-what. I mean, I don't blame Dawkins at all, and I, in part, don't really blame the Eagles all that much. But I blame them for not having a contingency plan. Like Macho Harris was a corner in. Okay, that's an argument from 10 years ago. Anyway, but listening to Quintin Mikell talk about that transition and just how interesting it was, like who was going to be the next guy to step up and be that leader. And by that time, Quintin Mikell has earned his stripes, was undrafted, and was earning his reps on the field. He definitely stepped into more of that role, and some other guys stepped up as well. But from going from a Hall of Famer like Brian Dawkins to Sean Jones, Macho Harris, yeah, that's weird. But my thanks to Quintin Mikell. And make sure you later today, you check out that podcast, Q&A with Quintin Mikell and Jason Avant, part of the Inside the Birds podcast group, and have some fun with that wherever podcasts are available, and also on YouTube as well. Before we go any further, I do want to thank some of our great sponsors. Now, we've covered hockey. We've covered basketball. We've covered some football, obviously. And we covered some baseball. You know what we haven't talked yet? UFC. That's right. And if you want to get in on UFC 259 this weekend, be sure you check out all the action that DraftKings is giving you with the DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. It's putting you to the center of this weekend's title fight with 100-1 odds on either fighter landing a punch during the title fight. Hey, come on, just landing a punch. Pick either main event fighter to land a punch during this weekend's UFC 259 bout, and DraftKings Sportsbook will give you 100-1 odds. Just bet $1 on either fighter to land a punch, and if that happens, you'll get $100 in your account. How about that? There's no better way to put your MMA knowledge to the test than putting your money where your mouth is with DraftKings Sportsbook. Don't worry if MMA is not your thing. They got plenty of odds on basketball, hockey, and so much more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. You can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Farzy. That's promo code Farzy when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 if either main event fighter just lands a punch on Saturday. Place your bet and watch as the fists fly this weekend. Use promo code Farzy to turn $1 into $100. Either fighter just landing a punch for a limited time only at DraftKings. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And how about this? Steak and Maine, ladies and gentlemen, in the heart of Northeast Maryland. If you follow Tony Cavada on social media, if you follow Steak and Maine on social media, succulent is the word that comes to mind of all the beautiful pictures they post of their menu. It is gorgeous. I'll tell you what, I might be like one of them hipsters just taking photos of my food when I go there. That's how great it is. Northeast Maryland, make sure you check out Steak and Maine. Whether you dine in a more upscale steakhouse or casual bar and patio, you will enjoy the highest quality cuts of prime meats, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, and freshly prepared sushi. A little surf and turf, if you will, at Steak and Maine. All of this with an extensive wine list as well, which includes the Cavada Cellars wines from his family to your family. Indulge a little bit. Treat yourself with a great wine pairing as well. Open every day, lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland, voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel Channel and Cookie Channel. What more do you need to know? It's right in our backyard. Check it out for yourself. Go to steakandmaine.com for more information. As for another local business that's just crushing it right now, how about Zatos Investments? You hear them all the time on the show. They sponsor our guest line. We got some great guests And Zatos Investments brings us that guest line. It's an up-and-coming luxury real estate development and investment company in the Philadelphia area. They design and develop top-of-the-line custom homes around the city, ranging from small, single-family rehabs to ground-up new construction townhomes and condo buildings as well. They got it all at Zatos Investments. Zatos also works closely with their private investor base to provide them with substantial returns on their investment, ranging from 20 to 40%. These guys, like I said, they're just crushing it right now in the Philadelphia market. They're crushing it in the Philadelphia real estate game. To see some of their properties and also learn how you too could invest with Zatos, reach out to info@zatosinvestments.com or simply visit zatosinvestments.com. Time for our social media check-in right now, brought to you by our friends at Steak and Maine. Plenty of great comments. I do want to give a shout-out to our boys at Nasty Knuckles, Riley Cote, for instance, Derek Settlemeyer as well. You guys do a great job with that podcast. They just say, appreciate you opening with Flyers conversation today. Well, when you have a gem like this...
For sure. Maybe if I didn't pass them the puck and they scored, tied the game, that would have helped too.
I would have a gem like that with Shane Gostisbehere being that honest. You're going to use it. And the Flyers just quite frankly pissed me off last night in Pittsburgh. They pissed me off. And knowing that Pittsburgh fans were also in the building, to revel in that. Anyway. So yeah, the Flyers lost. That sucks. And of course, I'm going to open with that because I'm a big hockey fan. Let's say, I think this was in reference to Quintin Mikell's story about Brian Dawkins during the Jim Johnson meetings, where he was talking about how Jim Johnson just kind of had this kind of voice, like very soothing, like just kind of just going through film in the film room with the defensive backs and the defense. That would make me want to pass out too and put water in my eyes. I think it was in reference to maybe somebody saying here, Taylor saying, that's funny, but maybe people were just scared and fake laughed at Brian Dawkins because they didn't want to get their head ripped off. I have never heard Brian Dawkins the jokester before. As I said in the interview, I've heard Brian Dawkins is a great leader, the great motivator, idiot man, Wolverine, bobbleheads, whatever. I have never heard of Brian Dawkins the jokester. So that's a side of Brian Dawkins I have never really heard of before, so I appreciate that. Max checking in saying that Quintin Mikell said the C word, chip. I see what you did there. John Axelbad checking in saying, yes, Lions weren't perfect on offense, but the defense was terrible. The defense was terrible. We just alluded to, or just played for you again, Shane Gostisbehere, talking about his turnover in that first period that ended up leading to the 1-1 tie there with the Penguins. A lot of bad hockey, especially on the defensive end of things. And like Alain Vigneault said, as far as those forwards do go, hey guys, see what Coots and Farabee and JVR are doing? Let's get a little of that. Let's spread that power around just a little bit. I'd love to see that happen. That was our social media check-in brought to you by our good friends at Steak and Maine. How about our morning rush? So much to get to in our morning rush, brought to you by Sky Motorcars, skymotorcars.com. They're actually hitting me up here on social media as well on our YouTube channel, saying that Quintin Mikell was actually one of their first customers. So how about that? Good for you guys. Sky Motorcars brings us our morning rush as they do every single day. We're going to do a little reverse. I'm going to give you some NBA scores just to keep you abreast of everything and get you in the know in just a second, including one wild stat in our morning rush when it comes to the NBA. I want to start out with this. Deuce Staley was praised during an interview that Dan Campbell, the new head coach of the Lions, who Deuce Staley is going to be working for, Deuce Staley was praised by Dan Campbell to the nth degree. And it wasn't just like, oh yeah, Deuce is a great coach, we're happy to have him. It was, he's going to be a head coach in the NFL. I think that happens in the next couple of years, especially if the Lions actually get off to a great start under Dan Campbell and they go through a little bit of a turnaround and get over the hump and make it to the playoffs and win a playoff game. I think all that can happen. Now, Deuce Staley had the same title here in Philadelphia. And I believe it was Reuben Frank of NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com that came out and said, don't be fooled by that title because it's the same as it was here in Philly, but Deuce is going to have more of a hands-on role, and this is where Dan Campbell comes in. I think Dan Campbell was doing an interview on Detroit Sports Radio where he talked about how, yeah, Deuce is going to be doing a lot of the same things that he did in Philadelphia, but Deuce is also going to be in on game day meetings. He's going to be in on strategy meetings. He's going to be on game plan meetings. He's going to be an assistant head coach. He's not going to be like he was here in Philadelphia where, yeah, he was assistant head coach where he could talk to the team and get guys revved up and all that stuff or correct their mistakes. He's going to be a guy that's actually going to be involved in game planning, getting ready for things. And apparently that wasn't exactly a huge part of his responsibility here in Philadelphia. The bigger parts of his responsibility here in Philadelphia were, again, interacting with the team, being the assistant head coach in that regard, and then also running the running backs room. He'll have all those responsibilities while he's out there in Detroit. Dan Campbell seems like he's more of a hands-on type of guy, so I don't know if he'll be as interacting with the team as much as he did here in Philadelphia. But apparently he's going to be a lot more relied on as a thinker and a man that's going to be involved in the preparation of the process, getting ready for each and every game. And ultimately, that's what teams are going to be looking for when it comes to actually hiring not an assistant, but a head coach. Not assistant to the head coach, to the regional head coach, but the head coach in himself. So I just thought about this. What if Deuce Staley does become a coach in the next couple of years? What if Nick Sirianni falls flat on his face in the next couple of years? Do you want to live in a world where Deuce Staley is some phenomenal head coach that we missed out here in Philadelphia? Because I don't. And it feels weird to say that because it's not like I want to root against Nick Sirianni and only root for Deuce Staley. I wish Deuce Staley nothing but success. I think he did the right thing. I champion the cause for him to live his dream now of being an NFL head coach. It wasn't going to happen here in Philadelphia. So I credit him and give him all the credit in the world for that. It'll really piss me off, though, if he is a great head coach somewhere else or even a decent head coach and Nick Sirianni falls flat on his face. So only time will tell. When you think about Doug Peterson's role here in Philadelphia as the head coach of this football team and winning a Super Bowl, I don't think Doug was the greatest strategist in the world, but I do think Doug knew how to motivate his players, knew how to keep a locker room together. And you think about 3 straight years making the playoffs and all needing some type of heroic run, whether that be with Nick Foles at the end of the season to cap off Carson Wentz's year to make sure you locked up home field advantage, and then, kind of win a Super Bowl as well. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. And then the 2 years following that, keeping the team together through adversity at the end of the year to rally everybody to make sure you made the playoffs still, even though at 9-7 seasons, and still win a playoff game in the mix like they did with Nick Foles. Like, that's incredible. That shows me how good a motivator of men, to use that tired cliche, leader of men, to use that tired cliche. That shows you how good Doug Peterson was at that. I think Deuce Staley can at least be that. And, the fact that he has had so much behind-the-scenes work, 1,000 times more than Doug Peterson, who, 5 years before he was a coach with the Eagles, was coaching high school? Yeah, I think Deuce Staley has a little bit more NFL experience as a player and also as a coach than Doug Peterson did taking over a team as a head coach. So that's something that we can't really forget, and often it gets left out of the conversation. Bottom line is, Deuce Staley, I wish you nothing but success. This was something that picked up a lot of esteem recently, and I'm a little shocked at this. Jen Slater, the NFL Network, put out a tweet that has started a firestorm over the last 2 days, and I can't believe it. Now, I've heard many times that interns are a thing of the past, that it rarely ever happens. You don't get an intern, especially an unpaid internship. And I like internship is supposed to be unpaid. Like, if you're getting paid, it's called a job. Like, what do we even call it? What is an unpaid internship? That's not an internship. That's a job. And at places I've worked, they've gotten rid of that, and they've hired assistants that are supposed to take over the intern's role, whatever. Hey, man, I'll say that I don't give a damn what I did in my past. And if anybody's familiar with my history, I did my fair share of working free hours. And if that meant I needed to take on another job, an actual job that paid you, a second job, a third job, a fourth job, a fifth job, I did it. And that's not to say that I'm something great. That just means I knew what I had to do to separate myself from the rest of the pack, because it's a dog-eat-dog world, as we know out there. And bottom line, someone's going to always try to outbid you, whether that be to try to get more money or try to get less money. Somebody's going to try to offer themselves in a better capacity than other people to put themselves in the best possible position to have success. And I knew that's what I had to do. I know that's what millions of other people have had to do. And I'm not telling you that's how you got to be, but I can't see it any other way. That's the world we live in. And if you're going to be like, oh, they're not paying me, screw it. Well, then, okay, then maybe you don't want to do it that bad. Maybe you should pursue something else. Maybe you don't love it enough. I mean, I look at a lot of these college athletes that think they have a shot at playing in the NFL, and they never really get it. But what do they do for 4 years of college? Sure, they get an education, but they're not putting money in their back pocket with it. They're just going for the opportunity to go out there and play. I really see no difference. You're still putting out free labor, free effort. To me, I don't see any difference whatsoever. I'm just glad that recently college sports are allowing some players to make money. Not necessarily be paid, but at least make money. Good for you. But in terms of this industry, the media industry, any industry really, if you really want to get involved in that industry, you'll do whatever it takes. I mean, I remember nights I had to sleep in my car because I wasn't making any money, but I wanted to make some money, and I still wanted to get the radio experience. I still wanted to get the business experience. If you're telling people it's unpaid out front and you don't want it, you're gone. You're not in the audience anymore. Why are you commenting on that? It's not ruining the world, and it's so soft to me to think, oh, well, I'm not being paid. Well, guess what? Sometimes you can get invested in without money, and that's called an investment in yourself. I made an investment in myself. I'm still working. It's great. Thank you, by the way, fans of Philadelphia, for keeping me employed in this capacity. To me, it's crazy. I can't believe how much of a firestorm this started up when it was labeled unpaid internship. How dare you, unpaid? You should be paid for your work. Yeah, that's adorable. It's also incredibly naive. Anyway, I think that's something that started up and was beyond stupid that it became as big a deal as it did. And I'm sorry I even had to comment on it. But anyway, that's the deal there. Also want to get to Flyers. They're going to be allowing, I touched on this earlier, Flyers fans are going to be allowed in the arena at the Wells Fargo Center on Sunday night's matchup against the Capitals, part of a back-to-back that the Flyers are having on Saturday with the Penguins again, go figure. But the Flyers are going to be hosting fans Sunday when the Capitals are in town. So that'll be the first game at the Wells Fargo Center in a year. Good God, y'all. Sixers fan, by the way, it's going to be, I believe, 3,100 fans are going to be allowed in for that. Sixers are going to be back after the All-Star break, so people can check that out for that. Other NBA news to get into as well. Celtics beat the Kawhi Leonard-less Clippers 117-112. The Nuggets pounded the Bucks 128-97. Here's the fun stat that I teased earlier in the show. Joker last night, 37 points, 11 assists, 10 rebounds. That is his 50th triple-double in his career. 50th triple-double. Only one other center has more triple-doubles, and that guy's name is Will Chamberlain. He was pretty good at basketball. You may have heard of him. But as far as this goes, as far as Joker goes in this regard, only one person is ahead of him in the center position. That's Will Chamberlain. That's pretty damn good. So congratulations to Joker last night, his 50th career triple-double. Also, Suns beat the Lakers 114-104. That is our Sky Motor Cars morning rush. Now the moment we've all been waiting for. Big bets. I can only blame myself. Big Bets is brought to you by the great people of DraftKings. Folks, if you're on a win streak, you shouldn't really talk about the win streak. I kind of have to talk about the win streak and the great record because of this program. I got a little cocky, started feeling myself a little bit, and I did something I shouldn't have done. I tweeted my record to DraftKings, and somebody was like, "Hey, you're doing great. What's your next pick?" Whatever it was, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm 16-3, whatever since the show started, whatever my record was." And I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that because that mushed me. I'm now a mush. And as much as I want to, by the way, if you want to get involved in the Sixers tonight, they're +3 at home going up against the Jazz. The way I see it, if you're betting if you're betting and it's going well, you can't talk about that much, and you, especially in my position, you can't go the extra degree and tweet about it. That's what mushed me. And if I would have said knock on wood, I probably would have been fine. But I didn't until like 20 minutes after I tweeted that, when I realized, oh crap, I just mushed myself. The damage was done. The damage was done. So I lost my bet last night, which is I bet the Wizards to beat the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies pounded. It was the Wizards were, I believe, -1 going into the game, and the Grizzlies pounded them. They won by like 15 points, and I'm a big fat idiot, and I'm a mush. So I am abstaining from betting tonight. I'm sorry, but I got a little cocky, and you shouldn't do that, because the minute you do that, you mush yourself. And now I'm Eddie Mush, and I'm a big fat idiot. So listen to nothing I say. I'm sorry. Folks, I can't thank Quintin Mikell enough for jumping on the line with us and talking football with us. A lot of great stuff in that. That'll be, of course, making its rounds, I'm sure, throughout social media today. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Farzy Show. Make sure you check us out, obviously, on Twitter and all other social media platforms, on Twitch as well. You can comment on YouTube, and make sure you do that so we have some fun throughout the program. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow morning. As per usual, we'll have a Farzy in the field for you. It should be a beautiful day. I'm going to go out in the streets of Philadelphia, and I'll ask fans about going back to the stadiums and what they're feeling and what really stadium food they're missing the most. We'll talk about that tomorrow as well. But thanks for joining the show. Subscribe across all social media platforms and all that fun stuff. Thanks for watching the show. Jim Hyden produced the program. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. Thanks for watching, everybody, and listening. Have a great day.